I am with Objective 3, which is the behavioral adoption of automated technology. I work for Dr. Laura Warner out of the University of Florida. I am her PhD student, so you have me saying sorry, Dr. Warner. But we are here to behavioral adoption of the site of LEAP. So our rationale of this objective is to understand and accelerate the adoption of automation technologies. So these wonderful technologies are being created. Why are they not being adopted? What can we do to aid in adoption? And then we also, if we know people are not willing to adopt, the potential impact of these wonderful technologies is very limited. So that is why we are here and we work with the people in the automation directly. So our main objectives is to develop routes to these automated nursery technology adoptions, and we use the diffusion of innovations theory. This theory is not very complicated. It has 5 main adoption steps, and in these steps, in the stage of persuasion, which is where somebody is deciding they want to either adopt or not adopt this technology, thank you, they look at 5 different characteristics. So they look at relative advantage, which is this technology going to benefit me? Is it going to aid? Is it going to help me in what I need help with? They also look at compatibility. Is it going to fit with my current system? Am I going to have to make a lot of changes? Is this really going to be worth my time? How complex is it to use? How complex is it to set up? And then, is there an opportunity for me to try this technology? Is there an opportunity for me to observe this technology before I fully commit to either purchasing or installing this? And then our second thing that we try to look at is we map growers' information sharing network. This can either accelerate or fit the adoption of technology. So if growers can be connected to these networks, is it aiding and accelerating the adoption of these wonderful technologies? Okay, so what have we been doing from the BA team? First, we published a trade nursery article in the Nursery Management magazine that Lloyd talked about earlier. And if you scan that QR code, it takes you directly to that article, as well as it gives you a more in-depth of the diffusion of innovation theory if you'd like to learn more about that. We interviewed growers who do not use irrigation timers. Irrigation timers is the automation that we focused on this year. So we know that some people have adopted it and some growers have not. We wanted to figure out why some have and why some have not. What barriers and benefits are being perceived. And then we used the DOI characteristics, the relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, trialability, and observability to see why there was a lack of adoption, why some growers were not wanting to adopt this technology that seems to be very useful, easily accessible, and relatively inexpensive. And then we also surveyed growers at any point in the adoption process of irrigation timers, some that have adopted, recently adopted, or have not adopted. And we looked at their opinions and the stage of change that they were in regarding irrigation timers. And we used themes that we were seeing in the interviews to complete the survey that we asked these growers. So some of the key findings that we found in this from the interview side. So these were growers who are not using irrigation timers. They said that there is too high of an initial cost and a poor ROI, return of investment. They also said that it removed grower expertise and that a worker still has to go around and check everything. So what was the point? And then they said there was a lot of need for a ton of infrastructure changes, and we're assuming that this is part of the high initial cost that they were saying. From the survey, remember this was anybody in the stage of adoption of irrigation timers. Some have and some have not. We pretty much saw the opposite of what we saw in the interviews. So 66% of the respondents have adopted irrigation timers in the survey that got sent out. We did have 103 respondents in that survey. Over half of them strongly agreed that timers were helping them perform better in all tasks, creating better plants, making it easier on labor. They were able to spread labor costs and just their laborers around to different areas, therefore just helping them overall perform better. And over half strongly agreed that timers reduced overall water use and the labor issues that they were having. So whether they didn't have enough labor, if it was costing too much, if they would prefer laborers to be in other areas to help, they said that timers were helping with that. So you can hear more about the interview and survey in a Thrive session tomorrow, if anybody will be there. So coming up, we are doing another survey to examine the influences on adoption of potting machines. So there is some limit in adoption of potting machines, so we wanted to figure out what barriers were being perceived and what benefits that other growers were seeing. We're going to do interviews to look at the perceptions of pruning machines and what growers are thinking about this new automation technology. We're going to do a social network analysis to identify how information about these technologies is getting spread around and how that changes a grower's adoption rate if they are or not connected to this analysis, social network. We're going to be creating a module in the Leap University, which I'm sure Dr. Chris Marble will talk to you more about. And we're going to be talking about barriers to adoption so that other extension professionals and developers can know what needs to be explained more or stressed more when they're talking about these automation technologies. And then 2 manuscripts will be coming out. One with the previous interview and survey results talking about irrigation timer adoption. And then another one specifically focusing on barriers, benefits, and the social norms regarding irrigation timer adoption. So we do need your help with a couple of things. We are trying to figure out interview recruitment for the pruning machine interviews that will be coming up. And then we are looking for firms that we can send our survey to so that those people can take it about the potting machines. So you can email us at the following emails. That is Dr. Laura Warner's email, and then that is mine. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, well, everyone in Zoom's got to see
Oh,
you.
oh boy. Um, I was just wondering, was any kind of correlation with the age of the nursery and the infrastructure with their willingness to adopt the timers? Was there any conclusions to be drawn there?
That's a great question and conclusion that should be drawn. We have not compared the age of the nursery to the infrastructure changes. The survey did ask a lot of the nursery demographic questions. So age of nursery, their gross income that they were bringing in, how much their annual salary and things like that. So that can be compared if they were, what barriers they chose were the biggest barriers. But I can tell you that on the survey, infrastructure change was the highest indicated barrier, but only at, I think, 17%. So it was still not a very high indicated barrier. The interviewees, we did only have 5 interviews because it was very difficult to find growers who had not adopted irrigation timers yet. So that correlation may be there, but it's hard to tell with the sample size that we had from the interviews, and the survey kind of indicated it was a barrier, but it was very, very low.
You have a question from online?
Oh, yeah, we've got it. So this is coming from Lorenzo, and his question is, do you have an idea what the proportion is of growers who have not adopted irrigation timers yet? And there's a second part, which is that for the percentage that have, is that primarily programmed on site or is it remotely programmable like wireless?
Great questions. So the proportion of adoption is very, very hard to tell. If you can imagine, getting growers with the time to be able to interview them is very hard. We do know that it is, in the survey, we had 103 respondents. 66% of them are at some point in the adoption process of irrigation timers. So that is the only true proportion I can give about adoption to not adopting. We were only able to find 5 growers who have not adopted it. And we went through a lot of resources to try to find just those 5. So I cannot tell you a true proportion, but 66% of the 103 have adopted irrigation timers. Remind me of the second portion, please.
Do you know of the 66% of those programmed on site, or most of them doing wireless or some kind of other?
That we do not know. We did not ask that in the survey. So that could be a second portion that would come up. But no, we are just more focused on if they have or have not adopted and what barriers and benefits they were seeing. Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very quick, the sample size, 100. How do you know that 100 or 103 represents a bigger industry? Because I'm just curious, how did you decide on 100 to be a valid number?
Yeah, so we initially wanted 150. We used a third-party company to send out the survey who explicitly works in sending out these kind of surveys, and they had their own grower and nursery lists that they were able to use, and they were able to get 103 for us.
No, what I was asking is, are you sure the 103 represent the whole group? That's what my question. Like when you do voting,
Mhm.
people do voting, and they say 10 million people live in the state of whatever, and
Yeah.
they go ask 5,000, 10,000, whatever. There is a statistical number, minimum. So I'm just curious how.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it exactly represents the demographic, but I can tell you it came, I think, from over 20 states. So at least that part got spread out. It did mainly come from, there was a large portion that came from California and Florida.
I got one comment to make.
Okay.
One,
Yeah.
there is a difference between theory and law.
Yes.
Gravity is a law, so it's absolute. Theory, there are cases that may not work. So
Mhm.
when you deal with the theories, like adoption theory, it's a theory.
Absolutely. Yes.
So keep that in mind that since you are working on it,
Mhm.
it's not a law yet.
Yes. It's definitely not a law. We just use this in order to help us have a better idea of adoption and how to better aid in the adoption process. Yeah.